what areas did they improve, and I'll switch the draft around a little bit, and you got to tell me if you like it a little bit better if I do it that way. All right, man. So here we go on a Tuesday on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen, because it's your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars Daily Podcast. I am your host, Tony Wiggins, and I have a power-packed show for you guys today. First of all, hopefully my allergies don't act up. So if they do, an occasional sniff every now and then might be on the docket. So please bear with me with that. But the Jags had a facelift, if you will, this entire offseason. And we did a lot of debating and talking about who and where did they think their strengths were, where did they think their weaknesses were. We talked and discussed a lot about what they were going to do. And I told you at the end of it, we come back and review it and go over some of those discussions that we had. Well, you'll really see exactly what they thought when they first took over, when they started watching film. There's nothing to tell the truth more than action and what they did and what they decided to do. So we'll go over that real quick. As soon as I get myself together, y'all see me struggling a little bit. But we'll also take a look at the draft, and I'll do a little bit of a redraft. I'm not going to change every single pick, but I'll change the one or two that I hear people complaining about, and we'll use the actual draft board. And I've already done it. I've used the actual draft board about where they were and who they could have taken and why they take. So it's mainly two. It's mainly two picks out of the first five that people have had the most complaints about. And that's the first one with Travon Walker. And of course, the second pick in the third round, Chad Moment. I'll substitute players, and then you can tell me if you like that a little bit better. We're also going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the areas that the Jaguars actually cleaned up. Is it good enough to win a title? I would be remiss, though, if I didn't want to backtrack a little bit. What a mess 2020 was. I'm sitting here looking back at, outside of Trevor Lawrence and Tyson Campbell, and maybe we'll see what happens with Walker Little, outside of Jamal Agnew, who's coming back off an injury, and it appears that they like Rashawn Jenkins because they didn't touch the safety, and maybe Andre Cisco. What a disaster. What Urban Meyer really screwed up, man, because in a lot of ways, when they took over last year, he said that one thing he wanted to do was really invest in the defensive line and make it a top 25 or 1/4, 25% in the NFL. And what did the Jaguars do this offseason? They pretty much fixed the front seven for the second time in 2 years. It was a waste of time. They needed receivers. What did the Jaguars do? They fixed the wide receivers in the offseason. We'll see to what extent they fixed them. But more importantly, then we're talking about position groups that we'll get into later. I really want to discuss this. What on earth were they teaching them? Did they go through a whole year last year, and the only lessons that the rookies learned was how fast the league is, which everybody's going to learn that, and two, how to overcome adversity created by your own boss? I feel bad for the Andre Cisco's, and I feel bad for the Trevor Lawrences that they're starting over already. It was very necessary. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm glad that they realized that, no, we need to move in a different direction. What did the receivers learn from Sanjay Law? Any wide receiver that was here last year is a young player. The linebackers, the guys on the 3D, they're gone. Ain't none of them here. The inside guys. was a waste. It wasn't just a waste in picks. I'm just sitting there thinking of like all the things that Doug Peterson is doing right now, and trust me, I've talked to one or two players that said, "Man, we didn't learn nothing last year, bro. They just thought we were just gonna line up and out swag everybody. We dogs. Let's bigger and better than the best, and you gotta want it. But yet still X's and O's wise, these cats didn't learn anything about football and concepts that they could build on this offseason. They got to relearn all of that stuff all over again. Really set this organization back. And one thing, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've often talked about having a foundation, and as soon as you start building it, you got to bust it up and start a new foundation. It's like the house never gets elevated, right? Because you're always fixing the core and the problems at the bottom, or blaming it on a bad brick or a bad block, and it's not their fault, and not getting that right. So I know we're in the fix-it process, right? We're starting over. This is why I'm frustrated about last year, because this time last year, we were starting over again. Now, I'm optimistic that we won't be starting over again next year. But in hindsight, I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off that guys like Jordan Smith didn't get a chance to actually grow and learn anything. I'm pissed off that guys like Andre Cisco didn't get a chance to be on the field and actually learn anything. I'm pissed off that guys like Walker Little didn't really get a chance to go out there and compete, and so this organization could see where he was. I'm pissed off that they kept George Warhol last time when they should have switched up with somebody else, although they'd be switching again, but still. We are going to see, through player development, I think a guy in Doug Peterson that absolutely knows what to do to make guys better, which is something I think the organization has failed at for over a decade. Get guys in, improve them. One of the reasons guys haven't improved, usually when free agents leave here, they don't go anywhere and do anything. They didn't get any better here. They didn't learn anything. At least be a farm system for the rest of the league, right? So this year, I think what you're going to see is actual improvement. I think they're actually going to make the players more commodities, and they're going to get the most out of the guys that they brought in here. And there's going to be a week to week. Here's my prediction for this season with Jacksonville. They're going to compete in, if not all of their games, most of their games, the Jaguars are going to be within one score in the fourth quarter. I truly do believe that. I have that much faith that Doug Peterson is that much better than Urban Meyer. I swear, that's to me, that is exactly what I'm looking forward to with this football team. All right, so what we're going to do here, I'm going to tell you, we're going to do a redraft real quick. And this is the last time I'm going to do this because I heard some of the most ridiculous takes on the draft over the last couple of days. And quite honestly, it might be why I got a sinus headache right now, as opposed to the fact that my sinuses are acting up. It might just be some of the dumb stuff that I keep hearing over and over again. But touche, man, do your thing if that's how you feel. But I'm going to change a couple of the draft choices around just for kicks. And I'm going to see if you guys like that better, or I'm just going to end up convincing myself that the reason why you guys don't like the pick is because you don't like the guy who picked him, and that's Trent Baalke. No matter what he does, it's going to be a problem. And that's pretty typical, and I kind of knew that was going to kind of go that way until these guys go out on the field and perform. So I'll get right to that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you guys about BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. And you're going to need some help, man, because the way these playoffs are going, you don't know until the last minute who's going to suit up and who's not. And like Devin Booker played last night, I had no idea he was going to play. You can go to BetOnline.net and find all of that stuff out before you make your wagers. Find all the latest sports developments, league news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Crown the Yankees already. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. You guys start here with me every day on Locked On Jaguars, making us your first listen, and we are very, very grateful for you. Podcast has been doing real well because of all the people that tune in every day, even the ones that give me comments and tell me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I appreciate you too. All right, let's give the Jags draft a little bit of a facelift. Let's go ahead and draft Aiden Hutchinson number 1. And I'm telling you right now, I have a good source that tells me if Aiden Hutchinson had gone number 1, Trevon Walker would have gone number 2. I heard somebody say yesterday people gone 8th. So let me ask you something. Like with me, I don't get caught up in stuff like that. You know, like, well, he would have gone 8th and 9th and 10th. I had Evan Neal, right? Had they taken Evan Neal, a lot of people wouldn't have been upset that were upset. Well, Evan Neal went 7th. So the reality of the situation is the guy that some of us wanted at pick number 1 ended up being pick number 7. So if they had done what I wanted them to do, they would have got the guy who ended up going 7th at number 1, and that's not great value, right? So why would anybody get mad when somebody says, well, Walker would have gone 8th through 10th and we took him at number 1? So did Evan Neal, who wanted him at number 1. And Ike McQuarrie went 6th. We wanted him at number 1 too. Remember some people. Let it go, man. I think if Detroit had the number 1 pick, they would have took Trevon Walker. And I know they sprinted to pick up, and everybody said they got that pick up there so fast it wasn't any fun. Look, I get it. They knew what time it was. You don't hear people around the league saying Walker was overdrafted. But for the sake of this exercise, I'm gonna give you Hutch number 1. We're gonna keep Devin Lloyd at number 2. We're not gonna change the trades or anything. I'm gonna give you Hutch at number 1, Devin Lloyd at number 2. We're gonna keep Kyle Fortner because everyone seems to be very, very happy with that pick. We keep Kyle Fortner, the center, in the 3rd round at 65. At number 70, I'm not going to give you Chad Muma because you say this team doesn't have the luxury of taking a value guy. And you don't know how he's going to play. I'm going to give you Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver out of South Alabama, who went, 15, 20 picks, maybe even more than that later in the draft. But you wanted an X receiver, there you go. And then I'm going to keep giving you Snoop Connor because if I don't give you him, I got to give you Jerome Ford, the running back who went a couple of picks behind him. So instead of what you ended up with, if you end up with Hutch, Devin Lloyd, Fortner, Jalen Tolbert, and Snoop Connor, that make you happy? Would that tip the scales and make you happy that a whole bunch of guys that don't do this for real life are telling you, giving you an A, B, or C on your grade, on your draft grade? You know they're giving you that draft grade based on their thoughts, right? Go back and look at their mock drafts and see what their thoughts actually happen. See, we live in this world where fantasy has become reality. The reality is the people who do this for a living, and some people actually are out here telling me that people who do this for a living don't even know what they're doing. It has gotten wild that we can spend so much time trying to predict what the people who do this for a living are going to do. And when they don't do what we thought they were going to do, we go, well, they don't know what they're doing either. So who does? Who does? In hindsight, the teams that win a lot know what they're doing, right? Not if you're New England, because they've had some bonehead picks too. They've done things that people go, damn, man, they're stupid. Why did they do that? But they keep putting trophies in their trophy case. Lombardi trophy. I don't know, man. At some point, the business of second guessing is cool, but sometimes in trying to make other people look dumb, we look dumber doing it, right? We do it to doctors too. They know what he's doing. They know what he's talking about. Law enforcement. Everybody's a policeman now, and they know the law, right? We do this to have a good time and do this for fun. So I just want to know if we switch those two people around, those two players, would you be happy? Would you be happy with Trent? Would you be happy with the process? Would you be happy that your grade went up? Or just a little thought here, we could try to figure out why they did what they did and try to make sense out of it, just like we do everything else. Try to make sense out of it and figure out what it is they were trying to accomplish. And for me, what I said yesterday, the Jaguars were trying to accomplish is they were trying to get more athletic in their front seven, longer, more angular, and change the dynamic of what their bodies look like, which means, if you change the body, you change the outcome, because the body is the business of football. So I think they accomplished their mission. They really did. They're a very long and angular team, and they did not compromise speed. Sometimes you get bigger and taller, you get slower. They didn't do that. It leaves a little bit of desire, a little bit to be desired about how they're going to play. What tells me that they're not going to play it the way, exactly how Tampa played it, is who they drafted, the people that they picked up. I don't think they're going to play it just like Tampa played. I think Travon Walker's going to line up right on the end of that defense, sometimes with his hand in the ground, sometimes standing up, and give them a bunch of different looks. I think sometimes they'll have an even front of 4 people, and they'll have 3 linebackers in the game. With Devin Lloyd at the Sam, maybe having to guard tight ends. And your 2 guys inside or at the wheel in the inside will be Foy Oluokun and Chad Muma. There's a lot of good teams that we know all 3 of their linebackers, and even if one of them isn't out on the field every single play. And then when injuries happen, I remember, and people around here ain't gonna like this, but I remember when Dan Scooter was not good here. Dan Scooter was pretty good when he was in San Francisco, and he was backing up both Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. So I can see how and why they want to mix this up a little bit, even if they go to like a bit of a big nickel, where they put all of these guys on the field at the same time and slide Travon Walker down inside. I keep seeing people saying that Devin Lloyd is going to play some edge. He played a little edge in college. I don't see him as a twitchy edge rusher. I see him as a guy who can run and hit in space and can do a lot of things. I can see him being a pass rusher, but not necessarily a guy who lines up on the outside. I'm talking about a guy that just creeps up in those A gaps. I can see him doing that a lot. I just say get all of the talent here and just figure it all out. So we want to know what they were thinking, right? There's nothing to tell you more about what someone was thinking than what they actually did. The Jaguars actually gave certain units on their team a massive facelift. Who were those units between offense and defense? What did they touch and what did they not touch? And does it jive or agree with what we thought they were going to do? For me, it does. We have the podcast, we have the receipts to prove it, and now that the Jaguars have taken action, we also have that to prove it. I'm going to tell you what it was and what it is, what it's going to be in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you about rockauto.com. Listen, man, this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure pointless and seemingly intimidating questioning? Hey man, is this the way it's supposed to be? Is what's your, how many liters do you have? How many liters do you have? What size is your engine? I do not know. Here's my VIN number. Get the part. And then you stand there all day, and then some dude pulls up outside because he had to get it from a warehouse the other side of town. You don't have to do that with rockauto.com. Just go to rockauto.com on your computer, and you'll see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. And you can drive on up here to Locked On Jaguars every single day, Monday through Friday, because it's your team every day, and we are glad to have you here. I'm Tony Wiggins, of course. To all my new followers and listeners, thank you very much for making us your first listen as well and joining the family. So you're going to hear me rant and rave every now and then because, well, it's just kind of what I do. I ain't going to lie to y'all, I got mock fatigue. I did. I got mock fatigue. So I'm going to revisit some of the conversations that we had. All of the offseason, even last year during the season, I was always talking about the offensive line, the offensive line. And here's the reason why I said that. I never thought that they were terrible. But in order to be really, really good, the Bengals sort of threw a wrench in this because their offensive line wasn't good at all. And they made it all the way to the Super Bowl and almost won. But I will say this. I think in order to be really, really good, you have to have control of the line of scrimmage. And that means the trenches have to be solidified. You need depth. You need 7 or 8 guys that can play because guys are going to get banged up. And I think in situational football, having a good line allows you, even when things aren't going well, punch them in the mouth. If your quarterback's a little off, if the weather's a little off, if guys are cold, if you need to set the tone, if you need to change the way the flow of the game is going, punch them in the mouth. That's what, when you don't have the capability to do that, then you are basically sitting here and you're at the mercy of all of those other things that may not be going well to go well. And the easiest thing to do is just hit a guy in front of you and it could change the entire tone of the game. So I think they improved the line. I think they gave the line a facelift. And I know you guys will say, well, they only added 2 guys. They added Scherf and they added Fortner, and then they re-signed everyone else. Right. So from left guard, potentially left guard, all the way out to right tackle, you can see a different player. You're going to see a different player at center, and you're going to see a different player at right guard. Maybe left guard and right tackle, you'll see a different player also. We don't know. But in some shape or form, they've changed the dynamic of that group. That's not the group with the biggest facelift. They also changed the wide receivers. Even though the wide receivers as a group is also not the group with the biggest facelift, but they've changed the way those receivers look. You're going to see guys now get off the line of scrimmage and be able to get open quick. That's what Christian Kirk and Zay Jones are getting. And I know everyone's sitting here saying, well, we still don't have an X, or we don't have a true this or a true that. What we do have, though, are 2 guys that do know how to get open in the NFL and do create some separation. Kirk is really good after the catch with the ball. He turns into a punt returner, which is something he did a lot of in college. He can also take the top off the defense and go deep, and he knows how to get open, and he knows where those windows are. And I think it's going to be a tremendous help to Trevor. But that's going to help guys like Marvin Jones that don't have to do those things that they don't do well. I think it's going to help Laviska Shenault. And I know Laviska was one of those guys that I heard rumors that he was going to be traded away and this, that, and the third. I think one of the reasons he's probably not is because Doug Peterson sat up there and goes, no. Let me get a good look at this kid. We saw him in college. We had a little book on him. Let's see what I could do with him and what we could do. Sanjay Lal damn sure wasn't going to get it done. So let's see what he could do with Laviska Shenault. Quarterback, they added a rookie free agent out of Brown, but I don't expect much of that to change. Running back, I do like Snoop Connor. I like his makeup and what he brings to the team. He might be running back 2 coming out of camp. You never know. But they didn't really change that around too much. Tight end, I like the fact that they have Evan Ingram, and he's a red zone threat. And if he stays healthy, he's a super, super talented player that falls right in line with the wide receiver. I mean, the tight ends that Doug has had at his other stops and wherever he's been, guys that can attack the seam and that can also be a safety valve out in the flats. So that room didn't change it very much. The defensive backs didn't change much, although they did add Darius Williams, who I really like. And they also drafted a couple of late round corners. And one I think Montek Brown says he can even play safety. So we'll see if one of those guys can stick or at least do good enough in training camp to be put on the practice squad. Here's the big facelift. I mentioned it earlier. Not one linebacker in their top 3 is on this team anymore. And it appears the 4th guy from last year, Shaq Quarterman, is going to have to fight to remain the 4th guy on this team. Total facelift. Those dudes don't look, play. Their whole setup is totally different from the guys that were here last year. What does that mean to me? That means somebody looked at this team and looked at that tape and said, we got to get some linebackers and all of them got to go. Was that one of those things that you thought, as a novice evaluator like we all are? I got a podcast that I did a few weeks back, and I said they're going to revamp the linebacker room, and that's exactly what they did. I got several of them that said they need to revamp or fix that offensive lineup. That's exactly what they did. And to satisfy a lot of you guys constantly told me something that I also agree with, that they needed to fix up the wide receiver. This is where the biggest facelift came. Somebody looked at that team. I don't know if it was Doug. I don't know if it was Trent. I don't know if it was some of the coaches or staff. I don't know if it was Mike Caldwell. And they said, this ain't working. Those guys got to go. All of those linebackers are terrible. They can't do the things. And if you watched them last year, you probably thought differently. Nothing tells you the truth. Nothing tells you what people are thinking more than what they'll do. And you can go back in hindsight and go, I never knew they were that terrible. I don't think many people thought those linebackers were that bad. But for what they want to do now, yeah, they're that bad. Don't tell me, well, Miles was about money. No, they paid another guy $15 million a year. Right? Somebody looked at this team too and said, we're not athletic enough up front, in the front seven. That's what they did. Because that's why the first 3 of the first 4 picks were front seven guys. And this is why I got so angry when I'm thinking about 2020 or 2021. I got so angry because that's the first thing that Urban tried to come in here and fix. And it was still broken to the point where they refixed it. Yeah, Charlie Strong in here last year and all that. The linebacker coach, linebacker guru, the assistant head coach. Yeah, Joe Cullen, who was a former linebackers coach. And they ran a 3-4, and it's a variation. They're running a 3-4 this year. That there wasn't not one of those guys in the building last year that knew that the linebackers stunk. They fixed them all. They got rid of everybody. They changed the whole unit up. They gave the linebacker group a BBL. Yep. They don't even look the same anymore. I just hope for our sake that they're right, and I hope that this continues and they keep fixing the things that need to be fixed. You guys don't need to fix your channels anywhere else. Because Locked On Jaguars here every single day, Monday through Friday, to give you the content that you need. We thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure you make your second listen Locked On NFL on the Locked On NFL YouTube page, as well as wherever you get your podcast. And as a reminder, we are free on all platforms. All right, man. There you go. Gave you a facelift. Forget about that redraft I did. I just wanted to do an exercise to see if you'd be happier. I don't think most of y'all will. Probably because Trent did the picking, but there you go. The Jaguars gave a major facelift to a certain group, and that tells you what they were thinking, so we can go back and have those conversations that we used to have. And now you know you got your answer to what they had been thinking all along. You guys take care of each other. We'll see you here tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars.